But how you use this privilege as an introvert to make you until right now?
Because whenever people think about introversion,
Yeah.
they don't. At least when I was little, I used to aspire to be extroverted. Aku mau banget tuh jadi extrovert,
Yeah.
yang bisa punya banyak temen, yang emang suka energizingnya itu dengan cara bersama grup-grup orang, komunitas. Tapi you were right, you know. In my case sebenarnya the way that my life happened, aku memang menggunakan beberapa, aspek dari introversion aku untuk sebagai competitive advantage aku pada saat itu ya.
Juxtapod. Insights from aspiring people.
Yo, Jux listeners, welcome back to Juxtapod, insight from aspiring people with your favorite host, Jonathan Brian Wijaya. This person I've met since junior high school, and it's been a long time. And also I've recognized this person dari satu startup namanya Tinlit, and we're going to talk about it with Dira Vidya. Hai Kak, apa kabar?
Halo semuanya juga.
It's been an honor, Thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. I nggak kepikiran tiba-tiba pas lagi nyari-nyari influencer gitu kan. Duh, ini siapa lagi tiba-tiba nih? Nextnya siapa? Gisel gitu kan. Ini siapa abis ini? Oh, yaudah deh. Boleh deh coba approach si Kak Dira ini. Kira-kira dia kebetulan juga kayak I've been seeing to your social media and you've been abroad, right?
Yes.
You've been studying abroad. Singapura nggak salah ya?
Singapura.
Yeah, Singapore, right? So that's why like I'm thinking, ini kayaknya susah nih kan, masih lama kan itu kan study abroad. And recently I found out you were in Indonesia ketika kemarin ada event di Tinlit.
Yes.
Ya, kemarin event di Tinlit baru ditemukan, nih si Kak Dira kebetulan lagi di Indonesia nih. Udah kita coba kontak aja ya. Ya udah kontak, wah ternyata bisa gitu kan. Now, so how's your study abroad previously?
How is my study abroad? Jadi untuk konteks guys, aku di Singapura kuliah selama 4 tahun. Jadi aku masuk ke Yale and US College namanya, dan itu seperti liberal arts college pertama di Singapura, dan kalau nggak salah di Asia sebenarnya. Ya, dan itu sebenarnya juga merupakan bagian dari National University of Singapore.
Oh ya, NUS.
NUS.
Ya.
Jadi kalau misalnya kalian ke kampus NUS terus kalian masuk ke dalam U-Town-nya, dulu itu di sana ada bagian yang emang terdedikasi dedicated space ya untuk Yale NUS dan juga residential college system kita. Seperti itu.
Residential college. It means that you having not just having college but having an intimate with family like that gitu.
Exactly, tapi not family but friends.
Iya.
Jadi beneran kita 4 tahun itu kita live and study all at the same place. Di satu kampus itu bersama-sama. Jadi the majority of our students, if not all, mereka itu 4 tahun emang di residential college system itu. Berbeda dengan misalnya divisi atau departemen NUS lainnya yang housing is not guaranteed kan ya. Tapi untuk kita it's guaranteed.
Oh wow.
Ya. Wow. Emang this is in the past. Emang kebetulan beberapa tahun yang lalu NUS membuat announcement bahwa mereka itu memiliki rencana untuk nge-merge Yale NUS dengan fakultas lainnya, dan akhirnya sebenarnya college kita itu ditutup.
Oh, wow.
Unfortunately.
Jadi,
jadi kalau misalnya teman-teman listeners Jonathan masih mau nih visit kampusnya, semumpung masih existing, bisa banget nih ke Singapura, hop on a plane and then visit the NUS campus, langsung ke U-Town, limited edition guys.
Oh, so when it's closing, so it doesn't called as a residential college anymore?
Kalau so it's closing, aku panggilnya closing walaupun emang secara official dipanggilnya merger ya. Itu tahun depan, dan sebenarnya sistemnya masih ada residential colleges-nya di sana. Technically the building is still there, it's still the same. Perbedaannya adalah programnya udah bukan kita lagi, tapi ya udah diganti sekarang namanya NUS College. Seperti itu.
Oh wow.
Gitu.
So if we talk about like friends or like family and yourself, going back to where you are younger previously, if I would like to take you in the younger self, is there something that you take from what you've did before, and then it brings out to you right now? The habit, you mean?
The habits that I took from my childhood ya,
Mhm.
yang masih sangat salient sampai hari ini. Ada satu hal sih that comes to my mind immediately.
Apa itu?
What the fuck?
Apa?
Storytelling.
Yes, yeah.
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Mungkin Jonathan udah paling tahu ya bahwa
Yeah.
aku itu ngerunning platform menulis online namanya Tinlit sejak
Yeah.
SMP.
Uh.
Dan kebetulan kita ketemunya pas masih SMP.
Benar. We've met in SMP, and you've started the Tinlit like that, right?
Yes.
And then, but apart from storytelling, I think it's also not also storytelling. You also like to read books.
Yes.
Am I correct? So, is this this kind of person that from reading stories and then you are telling stories? How would that be the different thing?
Reading, the difference between
Reading and storytelling like that.
sama telling stories ya. Jadi sebenarnya these are the things yang menurut aku one thing leads to another. Gitu. Mungkin aku cerita sedikit tentang storytelling dan kenapa prinsip itu sebenarnya aku bawa dan bagaimana aku membawa hal tersebut sampai hari ini and how it has benefited me dan how it all started. Jadi sebenarnya aku itu pas masih kecil sangat introvert.
Iya.
Ini aku sempat cerita di beberapa video TikTok aku. Aku sangat introvert, and what I mean by that bukan emang introversion itu not equal to malu ya. Tapi at that time aku emang banyak banget suka energize diri itu dengan cara menyendiri.
Iya, benar.
Dan di sana I spent a lot of time thinking dan mencoba untuk create things gitu. Di sana akhirnya aku mulai tell stories. Aku mulai nulis cerita dan ngeposting itu di berbagai platform menulis online seperti Wattpad dan Quotev.
Benar. Okay.
Nah, tapi kebetulan ibu aku, she's super encouraging by the way guys. Jadi mama aku itu, she saw what I was doing. Dan
yeah.
and she really wanted me to share my story.
Oh yeah, from that Wattpad, from that thing.
Exactly. Jadi dari sana mamaku itu encourage aku banget untuk, Dek, kenapa nggak kamu ngeposting dan malahan, get yourself out there, join some newscasting, storytelling competitions. Dan akhirnya my hobby ya yang dulunya dimulai dari bercerita di Microsoft Word, di Quotev, Wattpad, itu evolve menjadi something more. It became storytelling on a broader scale. Gitu. Dan di sana aku memulai untuk beneran latihan komunikasi. Bagaimana sih cara I convey not just my stories, but also in general, the things that I feel are important to say. How do I deliver them? Dan itu aku latihan lewat storytelling newscasting. Dan akhirnya hal-hal tersebut, skills ya yang transferable yang aku ambil dari storytelling, dari komunikasi, newscasting, all of those ya interrelated skills aku bawa sampai sekarang. Dan to be honest, I don't think I would have made it this far without those foundational skills.
Yes, because I think the word that you said about encouraging, there's something. If your mom doesn't encouraging you wouldn't have to be this far, right?
Exactly.
So that why by reading books or like just you telling stories like that, is it become the person that you are very detailed about it?
Detail tentang storytelling ya.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you ask this question because pas aku mulai sebagai penulis, I was very detailed oriented. Ya kan, I really wanted to create plots and I really wanted to understand how I can break those amazing plot points, execute those amazing cliffhangers. Jadi aku emang harus sangat kayak, okay, spesifiknya what do I want to say in each chapter, gitu kan? Tapi then I started Tinlit.
Yeah, you started in it that way, yeah.
Exactly. Jadi in 2016 pas aku 13 tahun, karena aku emang suka banget dengan menulis dan kebetulan pada saat itu aku struggle untuk nerbitin buku aku, aku terinspirasi ya untuk memulai platform menulis online yang bisa membantu penulis-penulis di Indonesia agar cerita mereka bisa diterbitkan.
Benar, iya.
Yes. Dan sejak aku memulai Tinlit, karena itu adalah startup ya, dan karena itu pas dimulainya kan, you have to really you have to wear multiple hats kan ya. You have to do ABCD dari awal sampai akhir.
Benar.
Then that forced me to be sebenarnya less detail oriented sih,
Iya.
realistically.
Iya.
Jadi lebih orang yang bisa ngelihat broader picture kayak gitu.
So the way you see what yourself as a publisher from the Tinlit, it means that you want to giving opportunity to anyone to share the stories to the Tinlit, or that
Yes.
it's a platform to. Oh yeah, that makes sense. But in the age of 13, you see,
Yes.
that's the first time you see running a startup on the age of 13.
Yes.
Oh wow! And you were still introverted at that time, right?
I still was.
Yeah, but so that means you use the word, you use the privilege of the to this introvert thing you use as a privilege, right? But how you use this privilege as an introvert to make you until right now?
That is a very interesting question, Joe. Because whenever people think about introversion,
Yeah.
they don't. At least when I was little, I used to aspire to be extroverted. Aku mau banget tuh jadi extrovert,
Yeah.
yang bisa punya banyak temen, yang emang suka energizingnya itu dengan cara bersama grup-grup orang, komunitas. Tapi you were right, you know. In my case sebenarnya the way that my life happened, aku memang menggunakan beberapa, you know, aspek dari introversion aku untuk sebagai competitive advantage aku pada saat itu ya. Jadi as I said before, I spent a lot of time with myself to energize myself.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah.
Dan in those moments itu juga sebenarnya waktu-waktu yang aku pakai untuk berkarya. Jadi aku nulis, mau itu sebenarnya ngomong sama diri sendiri.
Yeah.
Kan aku di rumah itu ada kaca gede banget.
Yeah. Oh wow. Oh, this not that.
Kayak gitu, kayak di belakang kalau misalnya bisa kelihatan.
Iya.
Segede gitu, dan aku di sana itu sebenarnya suka latihan komunikasi. Emang agak aneh sih ya.
Yeah. Especially talking to the mirror to yourself, like I'm not the person, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tapi sebenarnya weirdly enough itu malahan membuat aku sangat trained di cara aku berkomunikasi, dan akhirnya aku bisa masuk newscasting segala macam.
Okay.
Dan juga ketika aku nanti membawakan acara misalnya di Tinlit ya untuk keperluan startupku, itu juga dampak banget. Aku jadi lebih nyaman karena emang sudah ada latihan, bukan hanya bercerita dalam bentuk nulis dan berkarya, tapi juga dalam bentuk komunikasinya sendiri. Di aku ngomong di kaca tersebut. So sebenarnya that's how I guess you can say used aspects of my introversion pada saat itu for my own personal development. Of course, this is not to say bahwa these are privileges yang hanya dimiliki oleh seorang introvert. Definitely not. Tapi pastinya ya bentuk privilege ini bisa terlihat sangat berbeda untuk different types of people with different personalities. Mungkin untuk extroverts, mereka bisa belajar komunikasi dan presentation skills-nya bisa diasah banget ketika ngomong kayak gini sama orang.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you use the big mirror. Emang kebanyakan kalau orang mau ngelatih diri sendiri itu emang sebenarnya lebih ke ini ya, sebenarnya ke reflect to yourself, right? Yeah, so I never used a mirror to that big, so I always like how I'm going to train myself if I only see myself. I would like how if I'm going to say to the audience, even myself, I cannot talk about it. I felt like it's that's very hard, you know. So to break the stigma of being the introvert, like how people could adapt of talking into storytelling to share the stories, although they are very introvert.
So how can you basically become a lot more brave gitu ya sebagai introvert atau sebagai pemalu nih?
That's different of word, yeah. That's because sometimes extroverted, but they are very shy to share their stories, right?
Yes, that was me.
Yeah.
That was me. You know, fun fact, ketika aku masih kecil banget, mama aku itu suka, she was really concerned about me actually when I was di elementary school, karena aku jalan, kalau jalan sendiri tuh mukanya miring, kayak gini. Karena aku gimana ya, aku nggak mau terlalu kelihatan ya, jadi like you know, emang kelihatan sih di body language bahwa when you try to shy away from things, when you try to be not as visible, you kind of, you know, kind of like close yourself up dan itu kelihatan di body language. Tapi back to your question Jo tadi, bagaimana cara kita basically break out of the shell?
Benar.
Sebenarnya emang it takes a lot of dedication sih menurut aku.
Benar.
Emang kita harus bisa bilang ke diri sendiri, okay, it's time to be courageous. It's time to do things yang maybe di awalnya we're not necessarily super comfortable with. Dan for me, there were two things.
Yes.
Pertama, ketika aku memutuskan untuk nggak memakai pen name. Jadi pas aku pertama pen name, yes. Jadi kalau penulis itu ada yang namanya pen name ya.
Iya.
It's like when nama samaran lah.
Iya.
Dan pertama kali aku nulis di Quotev pada saat itu aku pakai nama samaran. Karena aku nggak mau orang-orang itu bisa nge-link aku, profil diri aku ke ceritaku. When the day that I started to actually fully embrace my stories dan let people know me as an author, not just as a figure. That's basically my first step to the first time that I really took a huge step for courage gitu. Dan kedua adalah ketika aku memulai Tinlit.
Iya.
Ya kan dari aku feel very strongly tentang industri penerbitan di Indonesia dan aku mau berkontribusi ya dengan caraku sendiri. Aku merasa okay, you know what? Why not turn this passion into action? Dan di sana sebagai founder ya, aku harus banyak sekali ketemu sama orang.
Iya.
Tuh yang namanya meeting kayak gini reguler itu hampir bahkan kadang-kadang setiap hari gitu ya.
Iya.
And rejection sih banyak banget juga.
Iya.
So itu juga aku harus mendorong diri sendiri dan I used my passion, I used the things that I loved as an encouragement. Dan itu sebenarnya yang aku mungkin jika aku ada saran ya, itu yang bisa kalian juga lakukan. If you're trying to break out of your shell, what do you feel very strongly about? Okay, because at the end of the day, this is not about you and your shyness, your anxiety, atau it's about what you're trying to create, what you're trying to deliver. And for me, it was change in the publishing industry di Indonesia. And I felt more strongly towards that sampai perasaan malu-malu aku sendiri itu udah terlupakan sebenarnya.
Yeah. I think people use the word putus, urat malu putus itu it's very one of the essential things to share your stories to other people. Like sometimes people also think that why would I share my stories? If I want to share my stories, people will think I hate your stories or like ini apaan sih nih story-nya apaan sih kayak like people will literally maybe judge I guess. So I think the way you did is you just not judge, do not care what people judge you. Yeah. It's literally hard to avoid to be subtle of bodo amat gitu. So it's very hard to be a person who doesn't care of what people say because sometimes people tutup their opinion. Right?
Do you want to hear a story actually about that juga? It's true what you said. It's really hard to disregard other people's opinions, especially when you're young and you're still figuring it out. Karena kamu belum punya identitas diri kan.
Yeah.
You're not yet comfortable with who you are. Nah, funny story about what happened to me the early stages of Tinlit. My first ever partnership. Jadi aku itu pas itu mau partnership lah sama sekolah ceritanya dan mau ketemuan nih sama orang pertama kalinya. You know, I was so nervous. This was my first time. Beneran pitching gitu ke orang sendiri pula. And I was 13. Gitu. Jadi I sat down. Ini aku inget banget ini sebelah di kos sebelah di Saint Cinnamon. Kita duduk di mejanya dan aku udah bawa nih pitch deck aku, udah bawa company profile aku, dibuka semuanya. Dan guess what? I rapped. I just went through it super quickly karena I was so nervous that they're gonna think I'm too young. They're gonna think I'm stupid. Because I was so inexperienced.
And at the age of 13, right?
Yes. Akhirnya aku jadi saking nervousnya dan saking anxiousnya aku pada saat itu, aku jadi nge-rap dan meeting itu kelar setelah 5 menit. Dan aku balik ke mama aku yang kebetulan pada saat itu ikut sama aku, dia duduk di beberapa kursi di belakangku. Dan bayangin aja, her drink yang dia pesen itu belum nyampe. Dan aku udah selesai meeting.
itu berarti kemarin meeting, kalau nggak salah meeting sama orang-orang yang pengen partnership sama kakak.
Betul.
Itu guru-guru kalau nggak salah ya.
Bukan guru-guru, sebenarnya bagian dari OSIS mereka.
Oh iya, student council.
Student council.
Iya.
Itu pun ya, yang bukan sama older people ya.
People.
Aku udah nervous banget gitu kan. Tapi yes, as I mentioned, these things will happen. The first time you put yourself out there on social media, seperti yang kamu lakukan sekarang, Jonathan, dengan podcastnya. The first time you do anything, that involves, being a little bit vulnerable in public, itu pasti akan ada rasa, wah takut nih nanti dijudge.
Benar.
Ada persepsi sesuatu gitu kan. But you need to go through that. You need to build up that immunity ya. Because as long as you are presenting yourself in a way that you feel reflects your character, there's nothing to be ashamed. Ya, jadi emang harus dilaluin.
Ya, iya sih. Karena menurut karena people will karena orang kadang-kadang depresi dengan apa yang opini orang bilang kan.
Betul.
Karena I think the way of people take it too seriously is the way, or take it by heart gitu. Maksudnya masuk dalam hati gitu kalau opini orang. Sometimes it's like, what do you mean ya? Kadang-kadang ngerasanya beda gitu ketika kita harus menerima kritikan orang atau kadang-kadang kita harus menerima ejekan orang gitu. Like how do you defend yourself?
Keterima kritik sama ejekan ya.
That's very subtle. That's almost the same, but they are not identical.
Yeah, they are not identical. You're right. I think ada beberapa clear cut cases ya. Dimana pas aku dulu juga sering menulis, sometimes it's easy to tell yang mana yang emang wants to put you down dan yang mana juga yang sebenarnya mau kamu improve. Dan biasanya kalau emang genuinely mereka mau improve, they tend to be a lot more objective di bagian-bagian mereka kritik. Sometimes they're also a bit more specific ya. Ketika orang-orang ngekritik karyaku, they're very specific about the areas where they think I could improve. Nah, tapi as you said, Jo, tadi ya, there are juga cases di mana the lines are blurred. Dan oftentimes aku ngeliat itu sebenarnya di pertemanan. Because especially ya, when you're growing gitu. Sebenarnya kamu setuju nggak ya kalau misalnya people get jealous. Right.
Yeah, people get jealous.
But even sometimes the people that you would consider closest to you awalnya gitu ya, not everyone would be happy with your successes. Kamu setuju gak?
Benar.
Ya kan? Dan sebenarnya in those moments itu sulit sebenarnya to differentiate between, okay, sebenarnya is this person giving me this advice out of mereka emang good intentions, like purely good intentions, atau enggak, especially when there's someone yang closest to you.
Iya.
Ya, aku juga nggak tahu sebenarnya jawabannya gimana cara tell those apart. But you know what? If you know, or if the audience knows ya, bisa langsung di komen ya di bawah di podcast Jo.
Alright, I think that's all about about yourself. Now we're going to talk about your company called Teen Lead at the age of 30. Like, I'm not, umur 13 aja aku nggak kepikiran apa-apa loh. Kayak masih SMP kan, apalagi masih SMP tuh aku masih kepikiran buat apa ya? 13 itu masih kepikiran buat ujian matematika yang biasanya guru aku bisa Mr. Egan nih, halo Mr. Egan. Ya, aku ingat banget Mr. Egan dengan segala matematikanya yang ya pusing sebenarnya dengan apalagi shifting from something that is national to something that is almost Cambridge but it's not. It's the math or I mean the age of 13 aku nggak kepikiran kalau buat ya. But how you in the age of 13 you started Teen Lead?
How did I start Teen Lead? Oh, by the way, shout out to Mr. Egan.
Oh, he helped?
Sorry?
He helped you?
Yes, he did actually, and
okay.
I'll get into the story in a little bit. But Joe, before I start, you were an incredibly cheerful kid. I remember you to be very, very positive loh di SMP juga. Yeah.
Aku nggak inget sih. Aku nggak inget
Masa
tuh,
sih?
kok. Aku nggak inget kalau umur 13 lebih ke apa ya, lebih ke karena kan masih baru-baru SMP tuh, masih kelihatan-kelihatannya belum tahu apa-apa gitu kan. I even know social media when it was 2016. It was
Really?
kelas 8.
Really?
Yeah, but even the BlackBerry it was exist berapa tahun lalu aku tahu kelas 3. Kelas 3 terus tiba-tiba tahu Instagram kelas 8.
Yes.
Because at the age of 13 I never really know how to start a business like you. So how it all started anyway.
I would say that a huge part of that itu adalah support dari friends and family. Emang without them, I definitely wouldn't have been able to not just create Inlet ya, tapi also muster up the courage and the courage and the ability to start things even in the first place. Jadi I was very lucky ya, karena ibuku itu seorang pewirausaha juga. She's an entrepreneur. Dia kebetulan she runs her own HR consulting firm di Jakarta.
Iya.
Dan ini sudah dia lakukan sejak tahun 2002. She's very familiar with entrepreneurship, with businesses, dan juga she also happened to have a team. Dan pada saat itu di dalam timnya ada software engineer, namanya Om Yusuf. And I remember I was sharing with him my dreams one day tentang aku mau buat nih platform menulis etc. Dan akhirnya kita di sana mulai kolaborasi. Jadi kita membuat the early stages, the early draft ya, the early launching of Tinlit itu antara aku dan Om Yusuf pada saat itu. And of course this wouldn't have been possible kalau misalnya aku nggak ketemu tim Mama. Dan dari sana sebenarnya Mama itu sangat aktif dalam nge-guide aku, introduce me to misalnya bahkan ya business model dengan konsep business plan itu semuanya Mama yang ngejelasin. Jadi exactly, it was definitely a privilege to have entrepreneurs in your family, and for me, it really expedited my process dari sejak kecil. Nah, where did my friends and community, terutama sekolah, come into play? Jadi, aku, as I said before, aku mulai Tinlit itu di SMP. Dan di sana aku SMP bersama Jonathan. Dan I remember the first time I started Tinlit, aku itu malu-malu banget even share tentang platform ini ke teman-teman. Tapi the moment that I did share, salah satu orang yang aku pertama kali approach adalah Mr. Egan. And he was incredibly supportive. He did not just give me words of encouragement, tapi he also, if I recall correctly, read my stories and posted one of his own. Kalau nggak salah, that's what I remember. Dan as someone who is just starting out in the industry, someone who's just starting to put herself out there, things like this itu beneran kecetak gitu in my mind ya. Dan ever since then, that gave me a lot of courage. So ada tadi ya dua sisi. One is the more practical side, dan di sana sebenarnya aku banyak dibantu sama Om Yusuf, software engineer, dan juga Mama aku yang bimbing aku in terms of knowledge. Dan ada juga emotional side, dan di sana aku banyak banget terbantu oleh support dari friends, family, dan my surrounding community.
Guys, how your family, especially your mother, take a role of entrepreneurship and then helps you to start up your business is something that extraordinary, very unique, because even in the age of 13, maybe some of our parents maybe think that ya sekolah aja dulu deh, kalau soal pikir bisnis atau gitu ya mungkin lebih tuaan gitu kan. Because at the age of 13 and in junior high school, it was something out of boundary. I would say. Even in the year of people are still trending on social media, content creator, where YouTube is literally growing with creative people. I think starting up with startup thing is not very a trend right now. Am I correct? Yeah.
Actually, that is a great point, Joe. And definitely during our time ya, pas kita masih SMP,
Yeah.
starting a startup young itu definitely not something yang super common.
Iya.
I do think it's getting more common nowadays.
Iya, karena kan karena lebih pikirin tentang karena mungkin YouTube sudah tidak kreatif lagi, sudah pakai monetizing AdSense something like that. So people would like to start up a business rather than become a content creator, something like that. If I'm not mistaken.
Exactly, and it's also becoming more accessible to start something of
Yeah.
your own. Karena sekarang kan udah banyak banget teknologi yang bisa kita gunakan untuk drag and drop, misalnya buat website or things like that. So it's a lot more accessible to be an entrepreneur today. Yes, and I think in my case, kenapa mama sama papaku itu sangat supportive dan sebenarnya sangat mendorong aku untuk bisnis ya sejak muda. Mau itu teen lit ataupun sebelum itu juga ya jualan. Kenapa? It's because they've always wanted me to think beyond myself. Jadi mama sama papa selalu bilang bahwa kamu itu harus, you need to do well in school. It doesn't mean you need to top the rankings gitu. Nggak harus nomor 1, tapi you need to be educated. You need to know about the things around you. You need to understand, the world ya lewat belajar dan juga berbahasa yang bagus. Tapi that's just the first step. You need to also think beyond yourself. What impact do you want to create ya di hidupmu ini? Dan at that time pas aku masih kecil, kebetulan yang aku senengin adalah industri cerita.
Benar,
Industri
karena
menulis.
dari baca buku gitu-gitu ya kan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dan sebenarnya things evolved since then. Sampai sekarang aku masih, of course, contributing lewat Teen Lit, tapi juga it changed. Tadi nasihat-nasihat papa dan mamaku sejak kecil itu changed the way I think about things. So now I don't just think about, okay, harus raih ABC for myself. No, but it's all part of a bigger sebenarnya story. It's part of a bigger plan untuk aku bisa melakukan suatu hal for the communities that I care about in the future.
Iya. Karena mungkin lebih sekarang kalau bisa dibilang impact for the community is something that is very not common, because right now in we go back to the year of 2016 or maybe the year of 2014 where you were in the age of 13. I guess the word impact for the community is not very common, like I said, but it's very common to be just impact for the kalau misalnya YouTube, I guess the YouTube thing is very very a unique process where we used to create things right there, right? Yes. But you take the other path. You use your reading skills or just talking skills to share apart from YouTube, right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I actually think, everyone has their role to play. As you mentioned tadi, yourself as a creator, you have a lot of power to change the way people think, untuk inspire people, So I think that's the role that creators have. And I think even, dalam industri sendiri, you can contribute in your own way. May it be developing new products di dalam sebuah bank in order to make money, democratize, access to banking or democratize different forms of money.
Benar.
Itu juga bisa sebenarnya. Jadi there are different channels by which you can contribute. Then I feel like it's about, committing to that and getting to that in the first place.
Yeah. Especially when you are doing it yourself in Teen Lit gitu kan.
Yes.
You drop yourself at the age of 13 on Teen Lit. Let's talk about the thing that you started, Teen Lit.
Yes.
Let's talk deeper about it. Like you've said previously about Teen Lit that if you want to make people telling stories about what they want to tell, they share it to you. They're sharing to you.
That's right.
Teen Lit as a platform for people to publish their stories, right? But how is the technically going like that? Like the the system of the Teenlit, something like that.
Yes, happy you asked, and I'm happy to share more in case listeners dan viewers
Mau share stories?
Joe mau share stories atau suka bercerita dan mau menerbitkan buku, this is how you do it. Jadi Teenlit sendiri sebenarnya platform yang menjadi hub ya antara penulis, pembaca dan juga penerbit. Jadi kita memiliki 33 mitra penerbit as of today.
Oh wow.
Yes. Dan penerbit ini skalanya seluruh Indonesia dan menyediakan publishing services secara mayor, which means gratis. Dan of course you earn a royalty ya seperti biasa as a professional author would. Nah, cara kerjanya gimana jika kalian adalah seorang penulis? So you go on our website namanya teenlit.com dan kamu bisa langsung post cerita kamu and dengan posting pastinya pembaca-pembaca juga bisa ngasih feedback ya dan kamu bisa grow dari sana. Nah, once you feel like ceritanya itu udah complete dan udah ready, kamu bisa masuk ke dalam halaman yang namanya Submit to Publisher dan di sana terdaftar semua penerbit-penerbit mitra Teenlit. Kamu klik publishnya, langsung aja klik submit. Yes, dan dari sana sebenarnya banyak sekali dari penulis kami sudah mendapatkan kesempatan untuk diterbitkan secara profesional dan mayor. Seperti itu. So, it is definitely a very, very accessible step for you. There is no fees throughout the process dan emang for us, our core goal adalah untuk ngebantu lebih banyak penulis di Indonesia biar bisa diterbitin. To democratize the publishing process. So yeah, and if listeners dari Joe, you have questions, feel free to reach out langsung ke social media, terutama Instagram Teenlit. We're very active on that platform.
It is very, very a unique concept of giving people to telling their stories because telling stories are very unique, is very common right now because it is something very trending right now because people in this generation, I guess people want to have money, passive income, right? People want to have passive income, but nggak mau ribet gitu, I guess. So like using your brain, using your ideas for curahkan di dalam suatu tulisan it's very common, and then you did it very, very, very well, I guess. And how is the idea back then in Teenlit?
How did it start?
The idea.
The idea. Like how I came upon the idea of this. Sebenarnya memang karena dari dulu aku itu selalu mau jadi penulis. So when I was younger, my dream was to become a published author. Jadi, did you know that my first book yang aku selesain, dan ini 300 halaman ya, was when I was 13.
Oh wow.
Jadi aku nulis cerita namanya Boy Who Broke in My Window.
Yeah.
Emang namanya teenager banget ya pada saat itu. Because I was a teenager. But I finished that book when I was 13 dan aku emang submit ke banyak banget penerbit dan literary agent seluruh dunia karena itu merupakan mimpiku. I wanted to see this di Gramedia, buku aku.
Yeah.
Exactly. Tapi I was rejected by all of them. Either di reject atau nggak direspon sama sekali. Dan dari sana aku mulai sedih dan aku juga mulai berpikir apakah experience-nya itu sama bagi penulis-penulis lain. Kebetulan aku juga punya beberapa teman-teman yang juga masuk ke dalam industri ini dan mereka bilang bahwa emang bener susah banget untuk diterbitin terutama sebagai penulis yang baru dan belum punya audiens, pengalaman dan audiens juga. And that's when I realized, you know what, ada sebenarnya gap antara penulis dan penerbit di Indonesia, di mana beautiful and incredible stories are not being commercialized.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of itu ya tadi ya, tidak ada bridge gitu. So itu sebenarnya di mana aku kepikiran, oke, kita buat sebuah platform yang bisa menghubungkan penulis dan penerbit. Sejak itu sebenarnya things have developed and things have changed. Jadi emang recently tahun ini kita juga introduce fitur baru yang membolehkan atau yang enable penulis-penulis juga untuk self-publish di platform Teenlit. Jadi kalau misalnya mereka mau buat e-book dan langsung take control over the entire process of buat cover dan juga penjualan langsung di website kami itu juga sebenarnya bisa. So ini spesifik untuk penulis-penulis yang emang mereka itu want more control. So sekarang di Tinlit kita itu sediakan 2 opsi, satu yang tadi ya penerbitan secara mayor, in order to help authors terutama yang belum punya terlalu banyak experience ya untuk bisa diterbitkan, dan satunya lagi jika author itu merasa ya mereka ingin take control over the whole process dan mungkin udah memiliki distribution channel ataupun marketnya sendiri.
Ya.
Seperti itu.
Yeah, that's very very unique concept because maybe a lot of people doesn't know how to apa ya, gimana cara publish their book, how people don't know where to start after you writing stories, and then you use Tinlit as a platform to share your stories.
Exactly.
And what's the process after you use the Tinlit to publish the man who broke the window, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah, the boy who broke the window. How's the process after that?
Yes.
Is it posted? Is it on the Gramedia right now?
Great question. So actually no, unfortunately not.
Okay.
Jadi aku memang nulis Boy Who Broke My Window dan emang setelah banyak kegagalan aku memutuskan untuk self-publish sebenarnya. Lewat Amazon ada yang namanya Kindle untuk ebook dan CreateSpace.
Kindle, ya.
Ada juga yang untuk physical copy namanya CreateSpace.
Oke.
Pernah denger gak?
Kayaknya enggak ya. Belum pernah sih CreateSpace. Ya.
Ya, so jadi aku memang memutuskan untuk jalur self-publishing. So very interesting ya, walaupun Tinlit sendiri dan aku sudah membantu banyak sekali penulis ya sekarang untuk bisa menerbitkan karya mereka secara profesional, aku sendiri sebenarnya belum nerbitin anything secara mayor.
Yeah.
So for all the publishers out there, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Maybe one day lah ya.
Wait.
Yes.
Okay. But how many books are in like bookstores like Gramedia or something like that?
Oke. Sekarang yang sudah terbit dan OTW terbit itu sekitar 20 atau 30 buku. Total. Yes. Jadi memang sudah cukup banyak karena emang kita udah sejak 2016 beroperasi.
Benar, ya.
Dan we've been publishing books since then. Nah, tapi emang specifically over the past year, kita itu emang nerbitin banyak banget. Karena over the past year itu kita nambah lebih dari 20 penerbit baru.
Nah, iya.
Jadi emang this is the prime time guys, kalau misalnya kalian mau menerbitkan buku di Tinlit itu, this is waktu yang tepat. Seperti itu.
Sekarang udah ada berapa buku yang udah masuk ke rak-rak apa itu ya? Rak display best sellingnya atau ada yang pernah gitu kan?
Wah,
belum ya?
Kalau best selling, I don't think so.
Ya belum ya.
Tapi maybe this is the time.
Maybe,
guys ramein.
Iya. Makanya kita perlu ramein Tinlit supaya nanti siapa tahu ada di salah satu rak buku display kan.
Bestseller.
Iya, bestseller.
Nah, tapi kalau misalnya kalian tertarik, of course support penulis-penulis kami, bisa aja sebenarnya masuk langsung ke toko buku, dan buku-buku Tinlit itu spesifik ada logonya di atas.
Benar, ya.
Dan itu buku-buku penulis dari Tinlit.
Ya.
Yep.
Now, so you have done your thing to telling people to publish their books to you, and then you share it to the bookstore, something like that. The question is the market.
Yes.
It's about the market. How you targeted your market? Maksudnya gimana ya? Gimana sih cara gimana sih Kak Dea bikin market sendiri gitu? Like what's your target, or who's your market to people share your story? Like how?
Yes. Jadi pada saat ini market dari Tinlit adalah penulis-penulis di Indonesia. How do I think we should stay in touch with the market? Ya, kita harus keep our ears to the ground. Kita harus selalu mendengarkan sebenarnya kebutuhan orang itu apa aja sih, terutama beneficiaries dari project kita atau dari startup kita. Karena their needs itu selalu berubah.
Yeah.
Dan the way Tinlit does that, bagaimana cara Tinlit itu selalu update ya dengan kebutuhan market adalah emang kita selalu melakukan focus group secara reguler. Jadi kita akan invite penulis-penulis kita, jika kalian bagian dari WhatsApp community-nya Tinlit, kalian pasti akan ingat ya pernah mendapatkan message tentang focus group.
Iya, focus group, something like that.
Itu satu. Dan selain itu kita juga sebenarnya banyak melakukan survei untuk mengetahui kira-kira fitur-fitur kita sekarang itu performanya seperti apa dan kira-kira apakah ada kebutuhan baru nih yang emerging di pasar. Dan purpose dari semua ini bukan hanya untuk make sure bahwa we are on track, bahwa we are basically meeting the needs of the market. It goes beyond that. Kita juga mau memastikan bahwa kita bisa antisipasi future needs yang mungkin dibutuhkan oleh orang. Kayak gitu. Jadi emang ada yang forward looking juga, ada yang aspirasi ke depannya seperti apa.
Okay. Then if you have reached your target market and then you've reached people to tell stories to you. Now how you reach the readers?
The readers.
Yeah, how you reach the readers? How you reach people to read your books until it reached 10,000 plus readers? If I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
way more now.
Oh wow.
Yes.
How is
So great question also because sebenarnya, of course, Tinlit started di mana user awal kita adalah my friends and family pastinya. Tapi I think we did one thing very right pas pertama kali kita launching Tinlit. Karena kita nge-launching itu dengan yang namanya Tinlit Writing Marathon.
Oh yeah, the event like that. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Jadi emang event itu beneran ngeramein banget dan I was really lucky at that time karena kita berhasil untuk menjalin partnership dengan Grasindo, which is salah satu penerbit dari Gramedia.
Iya, Grasindo ya.
Yes, dan karena itu merupakan flagship event kita dan kebetulan juga event pertama yang kita lakukan, salah satu event pertama ya, itu bisa nge-pull banyak sekali readers dari seluruh Indonesia untuk masuk. Juga penulis-penulisnya, karena itu pada dasarnya adalah lomba menulis annual ya yang Tinlit hadirkan. Di mana karya-karya yang terbaik akan dipublikasikan secara buku oleh partner penerbit. Jadi itulah sebenarnya bagaimana Tinlit itu bisa membangun market pada awalnya.
Yeah.
Ya, I do think untuk setiap startup out there, you do need an initial trigger. Gitu.
Yeah, the initial trigger to attract people to do what do you want to sell, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh wow, there's so many insights I get today. Like especially when you say you had this writing marathon,
Yes.
making as a trigger for write their books. It's very so many writing books. How many books are there in the event?
In the event, there was a lot.
Yeah.
I cannot remember specifically karena itu emang udah bertahun-tahun yang lalu ya. But you know what, the best thing adalah Tinlit Writing Marathon itu akan sebentar lagi hadir lagi ya.
Yeah.
Dan sekarang udah edisi keempat atau kelima ya, I can't even recall. But so kalau misalnya kalian emang tertarik nulis dan mau menjadi penulis profesional ke depannya, please do join, enter your stories dan ikuti komunitas kami.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that's I have a question about like when you do this writing marathon, people starting to write their stories, right? People tend to write their stories, and then when they're done, they send it to you as to Tinlit, and then you publish to them. Now, how you gain? How people would how people trust you as a publisher to publish their books?
So Tinlit sendiri bukan penerbitnya,
Ya,
jadi kita menjalin kerjasama dengan penerbitnya.
benar. Nah,
Jadi I think a huge part of that trust, of course di awal Tinlit itu datang dari fakta bahwa kita banyak partnership dengan penerbit-penerbit yang ternama, termasuk
benar.
Gramedia.
Oke.
Jadi Gramedia salah satunya, kita juga sempat partnership dengan penerbit Lovable dan penerbit Lovable. Do you know them?
Nggak tahu sih, kayaknya apa kurang.
Yeah, but they have a huge reach di Indonesia dan karena itu membantu untuk membangun kredibilitas Tinlit dari awal.
Oke.
Seperti itu.
Back to when you are create your trust to create your pitch deck,
Yes.
create your AdSense nama belakang ini nih. And then it took you until this part when you have partnership with Grasindo or something like that. How you make yourself how to make gimana sih bikin partnership gitu loh?
Gimana cara bikin partnership ya?
Iya.
Itu pertanyaan yang sangat menarik sebenarnya karena emang if you guys know, emang sulit ya untuk menjalin atau memulai partnership, especially when you're starting your company from zero dan belum ada track record sama sekali. Tapi we were really lucky at that time karena sebenarnya cara kita mendapatkan partnership dengan Grasindo di awalnya itu lewat cold calling.
Oh iya, cold calling.
Yes,
Benar.
aku literally nelpon mereka lewat telepon kantor dan kebetulan di pick up juga. Aku minta disambungin ke partnership person dan akhirnya kita ketemuan di gedungnya Gramedia.
Di mana waktu itu? Matraman, bukan?
Kalau nggak salah emang di situ, tapi aku lupa.
Udah lama soalnya.
Udah lama banget. Nah, ketemuan di sana dan kebetulan emang karena itu lagi naik-naiknya platform dan juga kompetisi menulis online, jadi emang they were very on board untuk melakukan Teen Lit Writing Marathon. Jadi that was how I did it, and I would have to say I was very lucky. People don't get opportunities like this handed over to them that easily. Tapi satu hal yang aku pelajari dari experience ini adalah selalu coba.
Iya
Ya kan?
sih.
Because you never know until you try. It's true.
Bener.
Dan bahkan sampai sekarang ya aku masih mencoba membangun Teen Lit dan belakangan ini aku mencoba untuk membantu mama dengan consulting bisnisnya mama. You know, there is never a point where you stop trying something different and something new.
Benar.
Jadi jika kalian mau partnership, mau kerjasama, mau bahkan nyari klien gitu, you need to put yourself out there, make some calls, join some communities, you know, emang harus dicoba, diupayakan.
Ya, emang harus coba sih ya. There are so many things especially when you are doing the cold calling, it's very, because right now I am trying to invite people to come to my podcast, and I've sent emails. It is a long time to wait the replies. Yeah.
Kamu udah coba first and second degree connections belum?
Kayaknya yang first itu lewat pertemanan dulu. Yang di second lewat apa ya?
Teman dari teman kamu.
Teman. Gak ada sih yang di following. Gak ada di Instagram aku. Maksudnya kayak misalnya si A follow si Jerome Pauline misalnya. Oh belum ada itu, aku belum ada kayak Jerome Pauline follow siapa nih gitu kan misalnya. Terus yaudah coba deh gitu. Kayak kebanyakan juga dari CP gitu, kontak personal kan.
That's true.
But the way you did the cold calling, I think it's one of the bravest, I guess. Because if you are not doing the cold calling, maybe Grasindo wouldn't have the partnership with you right now.
Exactly. Then, you know, funny thing is, it didn't stop there. Just a few days ago, aku juga melakukan cold calling ya. Dan kebetulan salah satu, this was my first time doing that specific type of cold calling. Dan kebetulan yang aku telepon pada saat itu adalah MD dari salah satu perusahaan di Indonesia gitu. And I screwed it up. That wasn't my best performance. Tapi then, you know, things like this happen, gitu loh. Kayak you're not always going to be at peak performance all the time. You gotta forgive yourself, and you have to be better, obviously. Tapi then do not fear trying again.
Yeah.
You just have to do it. Emang it takes a lot of, mungkin cold calling sendiri itu relatif lebih mudah daripada misalnya kamu ke networking event langsung, you know, coba untuk menjalin relationship dari sana. But things like this, emang you need to muster up that courage. Ya, dan jika misalnya gagal, atau jika kamu ngerasa bahwa, you know, I didn't do very well, that is okay, you know, because you're going to get better. You need to have that mindset. Dan just put yourself in a position where you're continuously growing. Kayak gitu.
Wow, there are so many things I learned today. And in the age of 13, how many times I said the age of 13? Because
Gak apa-apa.
Gak pernah kan di age of 13 with such startups like that, because it is very uncommon to have in the age of kepala 10 ya, masih kepala 1 gitu, jarang gitu bikin. Yeah. So how's the ups and downs of you become an entrepreneur in the age of 13?
The ups and downs. I would say, actually, I'm going to highlight yang downs ya, the biggest challenge I faced. Sebenarnya pada saat aku kecil, 13 tahun mulai teen lead itu aku minder banget. Because
Yeah.
I was so young.
Yeah.
Aku selalu ngerasa bahwa everybody else, mau itu partner, customer aku, semuanya itu lebih tahu tentang dunia ini dan juga tentang bisnis, dunia bisnis lebih dariku. And I felt like I didn't have the right to be, pitching or to be presenting my ideas. Dan that stuck with me karena yang tadi ingat pas aku cerita tentang meeting aku di Saint Simon,
Yeah.
my first partnership
Yeah.
meeting. The reason I was so nervous adalah karena aku minder, aku muda banget, dimana I felt like they knew more than me, dan I was so focused on wanting to sound more mature and wanting to sound more intelligent. Dan of course it took time, but I ultimately grew out of that. Yang aku sadar, yang aku pelajari over the years adalah sebenarnya it's not about you, it's not about me, gitu loh. Bahwa sebenarnya ketika aku membawakan sesuatu kepada orang ya, ini bukan tentang aku itu muda banget, aku itu takut kedengeran, gak pinter kah, gak apakah. No, it is about the message, pesan yang ingin aku sampaikan, project yang atau impact yang ingin aku create bersama dengan mereka. Jadi emang aku salah fokus pada saat itu. Aku terlalu fokus kepada diri aku sendiri and the fact that I was so young, being so worried about that when I should be focusing on my message. Jadi itu sebenarnya downs yang paling besar adalah dari keminderan aku karena aku muda banget.
Iya, benar.
But of course I learned from that.
Iya.
Nah, ups ya sekarang sebenarnya upsnya banyak banget ya. It's countless.
Yeah, you partnership back again with Gasindo, with Lovable Thing, and then
Yes.
and other partnership, and then you started a marathon. But what else?
Ada satu lagi sih sebenarnya. Great that you mentioned because then I started thinking juga. Tapi you remember how I said aku mau banget untuk diterbitin pas usia 13 tahun.
Yeah.
It just so happened that bertahun-tahun kemudian Teen Lead's youngest author umur 13 tahun.
Oh wow, okay.
Dan di sana itu seperti momen realization di aku bahwa damn, I really helped someone in my position reach the dreams that I once had. Dan they also have.
Iya.
Dan itu membuat aku merasa yes, this entire journey is worth it. Dan itu seperti ada dunia universe yang mengatakan aku bahwa hey, this is what you always wanted to happen. Jadi itu merupakan one of my biggest ups di dalam journey Teen Lead. Dan fortunately enough ya, upsnya itu semakin banyak sekarang dengan Teen Lead bisa lebih banyak menerbitkan penulis-penulis Indonesia.
And what about the downs?
The downs, yang tadi keminderanku, ada satu lagi sih sebenarnya. Ketika aku itu buat banyak mistake sama partner.
Benar, ya. Many mistakes. Maybe if you also make the mistakes, maybe they wouldn't also lepas partnership, right?
Yes. So I was very worried that would happen at one point. Aku kayaknya juga masih muda banget dan kebetulan aku ada partnership dengan salah satu penerbit. Dan yes, aku pada saat itu I didn't know kode etika di dalam bisnis itu seperti apa. I was really young, and of course this is not to defend myself ya, tapi emang faktanya adalah I still had so much to learn at that age, and I made a huge mistake. I'm not gonna go into detail about what that mistake was, tapi yang terjadi adalah partner aku itu disappointed banget, dan pada saat itu mereka sampai tidak ingin memasukkan logo Teen Lead di salah satu collateral promosi event kolaborasi kita.
Oh, iya.
So that was the extent of the disappointment ya. Jadi dari sana sebenarnya ada two things that I did. Again, my approach itu ada satu yang lebih practical dan emotional. Practically, aku of course I try to patch it up gitu. So now it's the now what solution, right? Okay, kalau misalnya ini adalah isunya, kira-kira how do we practically navigate this issue? Then for me, it was about explaining to them sebenarnya situasinya seperti apa dan trying to make up for it in other ways. Nah, kedua emotional side. Dan ini sebenarnya sangat penting karena ini ada kaitannya dengan stakeholder relation. Ya, ada salah satu quote yang aku dapatkan pada saat itu and it says mistakes are inevitable,
Mhm.
but harm is sometimes preventable.
Oh.
Artinya,
Iya.
di situasi seperti ini, sebenarnya emotional intelligence itu bisa ngebantuin kita beneran maintain relationship yang kita miliki dengan partners kita.
Mhm.
Jadi basically for me, what I did was I was very open with them. I explained to them the entire situation. Then of course, I was very open about being not very knowledgeable in this space. Dan emang kebetulan mereka sangat baik hati that they understood dan they were willing to give us a second chance. Setelah itu akhirnya kita ada partnership baru.
Iya.
So emang yang tadi ya a mixture of dua ya, always keep this in mind. Dan ini juga merupakan suatu pegangan aku, practical dan emotional. Ya, gitu.
Ya, dicatat guys, dicatat
Dicatat.
nanti masuk. Ini podcast daging nih. Nah, so how's the mindset of the entrepreneur shifted you until today?
Mindset of an entrepreneur. I like that question because for me itu menjadi salah satu sebenarnya filosofi hidup aku sampai sekarang. Dan it's the quote that I mentioned earlier.
Ya.
It's not about you.
Ya.
Ya kan? Dan ini adalah suatu hal yang sebenarnya udah dicamkan sama orang tua aku sejak aku kecil ya. Think beyond yourself. Think about the impact that you want to create in your life, whatever the channel is. Dan ini juga again reinstated by salah satu mentorku. Jadi dulu aku sempat ikutan mau di Ayunda Mentorship Program.
Oh wow, oke.
Dan beberapa bulan yang lalu sih, jadi masih
Yeah.
recent banget. Dan ini juga suatu hal yang dia bicarakan. So ini sangat impactful gitu dalam journey aku because sebenarnya a lot of the struggles that I faced had to do with the fact bahwa aku itu sangat obsessed dengan diri aku sendiri pada saat itu. I was obsessed over the fact that I wanted to sound smart. I wanted to sound credible. I wanted to, people to see me as this. That I forgot that I had an even more powerful message to share. Dan sejak itu, of course, I've grown. Dan sekarang fokus aku itu has shifted. It's really not about me. Gitu. It's about the work that I'm trying to deliver, the impact that we're trying to create together.
Yeah.
Dan ketika aku masuk mindset itu, aku juga jadi lebih enak bicara. Aku juga bisa bernegosiasi dan berkomunikasi dengan lebih baik karena people understand that there is something bigger, important that we're working towards together. Gitu.
So at the end, it's already 1 hour,
Really?
Iya, ini udah 1 jam.
Cepet ya?
Iya loh.
Wow.
It's been 1 hour, but the last question maybe at the end, you have been very incredible your journey with TeenLit, and then so you've been giving kamu dirimu sudah kasih impian kepada orang-orang bahwa ternyata masih ada loh anak-anak muda yang mau bermimpi buat nge-publish bukunya, masih mau anak-anak yang mencurahkan idenya untuk menulis gitu kan, dan you've made it so well, but at the end how's you and TeenLit bringing impact to Indonesia and to the other community?
I really like that question. And I think, it's something that I hope, actually, the answer is something I hope you would experience, listeners out there. I really want to democratize book publishing di Indonesia because I believe that everybody has a story to tell. Dan sebenarnya, every story has very powerful learnings gitu. Dan there's always something that I can learn from you, Jo, that you can learn from me, that we can learn from each other. Jadi aku selalu mau agar lebih banyak penulis-penulis itu bisa mendapatkan kesempatan untuk nge-commercialize karya mereka. Mau itu lewat buku ataupun nanti film. Dan di TeenLit kita itu masih that first step ya, buku. So I hope that with TeenLit semakin banyak penulis itu bisa mendapatkan kesempatan itu dan in the future develop themselves as an author and their own courage. Gitu.
Yeah. Wow, so many. Maybe you should be in a TEDx.
Dulu pernah sekali.
Oh iya. Iya dia yang pernah di di LinkedIn tapi nggak pernah nemu di itu sih di YouTube kayaknya ya.
Jadi dulu kebetulan banget pas aku masih SMA itu aku hosting TEDx.
Oh iya iya iya
Nah,
iya.
Jadi bukan aku yang
Iya.
ngomong ya, karena pada saat itu ada speaker who are even more incredible ya guys.
Iya.
Dan di di
SMA.
kuliah,
Iya.
di kuliah pas aku di NUS aku kebetulan sempet perform, aku lupa kalau TEDx atau emang just a regular speaking event, tapi sempet pas itu dan tapi kebetulan nggak direkam. So
Nah,
yeah,
nah.
I spoke about him too actually. Yeah.
Alright, that's the end of this episode. Thank you very much. Thank you Kadira,
Thank you, Jo.
Kadira for the today's episode. Anyway, guys, thank you for today. My name is Jonathan Brian Wijaya,
I'm Dira.
and we'll see you in the next episode. Dadah.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jokes to Pod. Insights from aspiring people.